Hey, podcast listening people. Happy Monday to you. Monday, as you know, is for the mentors. Welcome into B2B Mentors. If you're watching this live or watching the video after the fact, make sure to drop any questions, comments in there. We'll get them answered. Please share this out because I guarantee you there's one other person in your network who's going to get immense value from this information. Today, we're talking about exiting rich. Money Monday. What a perfect topic for Money Monday, right? So my guest today is an author of an incredible book that I'm like 3/4 of the way through right here, Exit Rich. Michelle Seiler Tucker is the founder of Seiler Tucker Incorporated. She holds the Mergers and Acquisition Master Intermediary title, as well as Certified Mergers and Acquisitions Professional and Certified Business Analyst, Senior Business Analyst. So many words in there. Got to say that like 10 times fast. Michelle also owns many other businesses in several different industries. As a 20-year veteran in the M&A industry, she is regarded as the leading authority on buying, selling, fixing, and growing businesses. Her and her firm have sold over 1,000 businesses in almost every vertical and have a remarkable track record of success that we're going to share with you guys today. So without further ado, I'm going to bring up the myth, the legend, Michelle. Hello.
Hi, Connor.
Happy Monday to you.
Happy Monday. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Your bio's great, but nobody can really share as well as you. I mean, I know you've left some stuff out of there. So what I want to do to start off here is give us a little bit of your background from young Michelle to where you're at in your career and life today. And I'm giving you permission, like the most difficult thing, by the way, I'm going to give you permission to brag about yourself. Please brag about yourself.
I usually don't brag about myself. You know, that's one thing I typically don't do. I let other people brag about me. But so a little bit about me. As a little girl early on, I knew that I was going to be an entrepreneur. I knew I was going to march to the beat of my own drum. I told my mom, I don't want to work for anybody. I don't like being told what to do. And so I've always owned different businesses, you know, probably not as young as you. You said you were 7 when you started your first business. I wasn't that young, but I have owned many different businesses in different verticals. I did get a job, though. Can you believe it? I actually did get a job for corporate America. Xerox actually recruited me, and I was their high volume manager. And then within 6 months, well, my nickname became the closer at Xerox because every time they couldn't close a deal, they're like, call Michelle, she can close it. She can close everything. And then within those 6 months, I got promoted to regional vice president, overseeing 100 sales reps. And I realized really quickly, why am I stuck in a job? I always said I wasn't going to have a job, you know? And then I was working in corporate America, managing all these salespeople. But the problem with corporate America is that you can't get anything done. You know, they schedule meetings, they schedule more meetings, they schedule follow-up meetings. So I ended up leaving Xerox and starting my own franchise development, franchise consulting, and franchise sales company. And I had equity partnership with different franchisors. And I had so many buyers that kept asking me for existing businesses. And I kept saying, no, that's not what we do. We sell new franchises. We do consulting. You know, we'll help you develop your business into a franchise. And then I'm like, what am I doing? I need to listen to the consumer, listen to the clients, and give them what they want. And really, over 20 years ago, that's how I started my M&A firm.
Yeah, what's interesting, you did the career life a little bit, which I think any real pure entrepreneur at some point in their life is never really a pure entrepreneur. Almost everyone's had some sort of job at some point in time. There's very little I've found like 100% pure entrepreneurs. They've ran and owned their own businesses. But I think there's a benefit to that, right? I'm sure you gained some experience from that led you into success in franchising.
Well, I did. I gained tremendous experience because I gained, number one, you know, Xerox has the best sales training in the world. So I gained a lot of sales training. I mean, I was already good at sales. I was teaching Dale Carnegie sales course. So I was already good. My nickname was a closer, but I learned even more with Xerox. Plus I learned management and leadership in a Fortune 500 company. And it was a great, it was a great stepping stone for me. So I'm glad I did it.
Why franchising? Why did you decide to go the franchising route?
The reason why franchising is because, not going to drop any names here, but I was looking for a business that I was going to keep working at Xerox because I was making so much money and great benefits. I was climbing that corporate ladder very quickly, but I missed entrepreneurship. I really missed owning my own business. So I started looking for opportunities, and I stumbled across this franchisor that had a couple locations. My husband actually knew them. And I just wanted to buy a franchise and keep my day job. And they said, no, we don't want to sell you a franchise. We want you to partner with us, and it will give you a franchise. And I'm like, I'm not going to quit my 6-figure position for a company that's not successful. I said, let me try it out for a while. And I tried it out for about 6 months.
They weren't successful at the time. They were
not successful. They had like 2 or 3 locations. And I said, let me try it out. I'll go to franchise shows on the weekend, work on the evenings. So I kept my day job at corporate America and did that for 6 months and made more money in 6 months than I made an entire year at Xerox. I knew that was the right move. And then I started working with other franchisors during this period and started forming a relationship with them and working with them on building their company and selling.
Yeah, franchising is an interesting model. People don't really think about selling franchises. In fact, Kevin Harrington, or Mutual Connect, he started in that game too. Franchising is a great business.
He started selling businesses.
Yeah.
Kevin Harrington used to be a business broker. He would sell like pizzerias and coffee shops and small businesses. And he was very smart even back then. I mean, Kevin Harrington's like, okay, what does a business owner need? They need insurance. They need a lawyer. They need a CPA. So he would build out all of these different little businesses, these little profit centers, and he would take a piece of the pie. So when, a buyer bought a business, they would have a built-in CPA, they have a built-in attorney, they have a built-in insurance company.
We live in such a beautiful world that there's so many ways to create wealth and to, get rich. What's Michelle's definition of rich? What is rich to you?
Well, my definition of rich is, I think it's more than money. I think money is important, Obviously, money is important because the more you make, the more you can help others. But my definition of rich is really the impact that I make on other business owners. Being able to help them save their business from going out of business, being able to help them become a sellable business, because like Steve Forbes says, 80% of businesses never sell. So really helping business owners maximize the value of their business, helping them sell their company, helping them retire rich, exit rich. To me, that's rich. What my daughter thinks about me, what my husband thinks about me, what my friends think about me. I think rich is really having a quality of life and being extremely well-rounded. It's not just about making money. It's about making an impact.
100% agree. I think that's a great definition. Now, of course, I agree with you too. Like, money is important. If you have a good heart and soul, the more you have to be able to give back, the more you're able to give back. And so you surround yourself with a lot of successes out there, especially financial successes in the world too.
Yeah.
What do you consider now in the world we live in, you really need to have financially to be wealthy, to be rich, and to be able to even retire if you wanted to?
Well, I think that's different for everybody, right? Because it's what, when you say, what do you need to exit rich? Like, what do you need in which to feel rich and which to retire rich? I mean, that definition is different for different people. It depends upon what their objective is. It depends upon lifespan. It just depends upon so many different variables. So that's a difficult question to answer. And, some people make 6 figures a year and they think they're rich. Some people make $1 million, and some people, it just really depends upon that person's objective and what they're trying to accomplish in the world.
Yeah, fair enough. So Sharon Lechter, love Sharon Lechter. Talk about this is your 3rd book, right?
This is my 3rd book. Yes.
This is your 3rd book. What was the decision to bring Sharon Lechter in to, help co-author this with you?
Well, whenever you can get a legendary author like Sharon Lechter, who's written Rich Dad Poor Dad with Robert Kiyosaki, She's been New York Times bestselling author 5 times. She's written many books in the Think and Grow Rich series, and she's just a wonderful inspiration to so many people. I think whenever you can get somebody like Sharon Lechter of her caliber, you jump on it.
Yeah.
And I think we're a great strategic, partnership because we come from different worlds. I'm, been in the trenches on hundreds upon hundreds of businesses. I've sold over 500. My company altogether sold over 1,000. And then she's got a completely different perspective as well, being a CPA, financial literacy expert, etc. So I think it's great for the reader because they get my perspective being in the trenches, selling all these companies, and they get her perspective, with her core competencies and her expertise. So I think it's a beautiful partnership.
Yeah, because I'm like in the midst of thinking on getting my first book done. And I think that's a dream team for authors, is to partner up with someone who also has an audience to co-author, and they don't have to sit there and write the whole book. But the way Sharon contributed was, a couple just golden, nugget paragraphs after each chapter, which I thought was absolutely genius. How did you sell her on the idea of contributing her valuable brand and legacy and attaching it up with yours?
Well, we have a very good friend. We have a mutual friend, and David Corbin, I'll say his name. And he loves me. He loves her. I really wanted to Exit Rich to make all the lists, which it did. It made Wall Street Journal, USA Today, all the lists on Amazon, but I really wanted to make the New York Times. We have the sales for New York Times. We have the sales. I thought Sharon Lechter would be a great fit because she's already been a New York Times bestselling author. And like I said, she has, I think our values align, and she has core competencies that are a great strategic fit with mine. But David Corbin was really the glue, that put this together, held this together. But he's like, Sharon, Michelle, you need to read her manuscript. It's brilliant. And Michelle, you know how great Sharon is. And he was really the liaison between getting the two of us together. I sent her the manuscript and I was like, I don't know if she's going to like it because I'm always my worst critic. And she's like, I love it. It's like the best.
That self-doubt started to creep in, even though you're freaking awesome.
Yeah. Because I've never really had any professional writing, but I've always written. I've written as a kid. I used to write short stories and poems and lyrics and things of that nature. But yeah, that self-doubt kind of set in a little bit. And he's like, Michelle, this book is amazing. She's going to love it. And she did. And she's like, I love the manuscript. I want to add in my 2 cents after each chapter. And then we're like, okay, well, let's name it the Mentor's Corner.
I love it. That's incredible. And I thought that was interesting. I was curious about that because, this podcast being B2B mentors, your network as organic, generic, how many people say it? Your network is your net worth. And you leaned in and leveraged your network to, just build this incredible brand to where you're at today. And oh my God, it's paid off. You've done 1,000 business sales. That's ridiculous. How many do most on average do in their career in your industry?
I've been in business over 20 years. So if you do the math, it comes out to what, 53 a year.
That's a lot, I think, for most out there.
We've had years where we've hardly done any.
Yeah.
Like last year during the pandemic, and then we've had years where we just have crushed it. So, it just, I think there's a big difference between me and other advisors. Most advisors never owned businesses before, and I've owned different businesses in different verticals.
So from actually owning businesses, that's where you've had your successes from.
I think so. Owning businesses, being in sales my whole life. My nickname was the closer at Xerox. I think, and a big difference too is we really focus. I think we're really good at figuring out what the seller wants, what the seller's objectives are, because a lot of times they don't know what they want. They'll come to us and they'll have unrealistic pricing. And look, I was just on the phone with a friend of mine the other day that's also an M&A advisor, but her philosophies are so much different than ours. She's like, Michelle, we need to work together. She's talking to me yesterday and she goes, I want you to start doing all the work on the deals because you have the team. She doesn't have a team. And I have a team of analysts. And she goes, you do all the work and we'll still split it. I handle the buyer and everything. And I'm like, but our philosophies are so different. If a client says they want, so she brought up this deal to me yesterday and she said, well, they want $4 million. I said, $4 million. What's their EBITDA? And she said, 400,000. I said, well, then you're not going to get 4 million. And she goes, oh, we'll just let the buyers wear them out. And I said, see, this is why we don't work together, because our philosophies are just so different.
Hey, we're ambitious as entrepreneurs, okay? All of our businesses are worth 8 and 9 figures, no matter what it's at. Actually, that's not true. And I think that's really the point of the material here. You know, in your business, is it more difficult to find companies that are like actually already have planned to exit at some point, or more so on the buyer side of things?
So we work a lot on the seller side of things. Well, we work with sellers and buyers, but no, most companies, like I said, Steve Forbes says 80% of businesses will never sell. Like most businesses won't sell because business owners don't plan their exit. Just like you and I were talking about before the show.
Yeah.
You know, most business owners don't plan their exit. They don't think about selling because their mindset of their business is, oh my gosh, this is my baby. I'll never sell my baby. You know, your business is not your baby. Your babies are at home. You go home, love them, hug them, kiss them. Your baby is your most valuable asset. And a lot of business owners, just like your father that we talked about, think they're never going to sell their business, right? But that's the wrong mindset, because nothing lasts forever. When I did the research, when I wrote Sell Your Business for More Than It's Worth in 2013, did the research, I learned that 90% of all startups would fail within those first 1 to 5 years. We all know that. But here's what everybody doesn't know. When I did the research for Exit Rich, I was flabbergasted. In fact, Sharon didn't even believe me. She made me do the research again and again and again. I was flabbergasted to learn that the business landscape has flip-flopped. It's flip-flopped. So startups are not at great risk anymore. Only 30% of startups are going out of business. But out of 27.6 million companies, those businesses that have been in business for 10 years or longer, 70% of them are going out of business. 7-0. You hear about this in the media. They talk about Toys R Us in business 75 years, goes out of business. Kmart, Steinmart.
That's just disruption coming to sweep them away, and they're not innovating quick enough. And the startups are making it because they're starting in more of an innovative environment.
There's lots of reasons for it, but what the media talks about, and this is the point I want to get across to all the listeners, the media talks about the big public companies, but guess what they don't talk about? They don't talk about all the private businesses,
right,
on every street corner, in every town, in every state across our great nation. These business owners are dropping like flies. They're exiting poor. They're selling for pennies on the dollar. They're closing their business, or even worse, they're filing bankruptcy. And the reason for that, you just kind of hit the nail on the head, Connor. The number one reason for that is lack of AIM. AIM is AIM. Always innovate and market. Business owners stop innovating. They want to continue to do things the way they've always done it. Look at Toys R Us. They haven't done anything different in 75 years. Blockbuster had the chance to buy Netflix twice, sat back and didn't do anything, and went out of business. And then so many business owners just think about, this business is my baby. I'm never going to sell it. Well, guess what? Never say never. Nothing lasts forever. You're either growing or dying. And you should plan your exit, because if you plan your exit and you follow what I call the STGPS exit model and Exit Rich, guess what you're going to have, Connor? You're going to have a sustainable business that you can scale. And when you're ready, you will actually have a sellable asset, and you won't become a part of that 80% of businesses that never ever sell. I mean, think about this. This should be a huge wake-up call for business owners, a huge slap in the face. You have less than a 20% chance of selling your business. Less than a 20% chance. That's not very good odds.
Well, to play devil's advocate for some people too, I think they're like, so what? I never plan on selling my business. But they don't realize that, like you've repeatedly said, all things come to an end, and most people don't really think in those terms. You know, like even you mentioned people stop marketing. I see the business owners every day, and in the companies that have been around for 10, 15, 20 years in these legacy industries, all of our business comes from referrals or this one trade show that we do every year. And they're not innovating the marketing, and then they're going out of business.
Yeah, when the trade shows are not there because of a thing called COVID, and that's how they get all their business, then what happens? So yeah, these business owners stop innovating, they stop marketing. Here's the bottom line. I mean, I just had a lady call me from Texas. Her husband owned a business. He dropped dead of a heart attack. And he wasn't that old. Left her with a mountain of debt. Asked me if I could sell the business. Guess what? I couldn't sell the business because he didn't have a business. He had a glorified job.
Yeah.
That he went to it every day versus a business that worked for him. So you never know what's going to happen in life. And there's going to be a time where you don't want to work anymore. There's going to be a time that you're not as passionate about your business as you once were, that you want to retire, you want to travel the world, you want to do something different. And so that's why you need to build a business that you can sell. And here's the bottom line, Connor. Even if you don't sell your company, guess what you have? A more profitable business because you built it correctly on what we call the proper infrastructure, the Seiler Tucker 6 Ps that we talk about in Exit Rich.
So what happens when you, in those scenarios where you come to those ends and there's just, you can't sell it? What happens in those scenarios?
Well,
typically?
with her, there's nothing I can do. There's nothing I could do. He had no employees. I mean, I took him to the 6 Ps. He had no Ps. I mean, he had no people whatsoever. He had subcontractors. He had no processes. All the data was in his head. And when he died, the business died. So there was nothing I could do, in that scenario to help her.
Just close the doors, wrap things up, basically.
The doors are already closed. She's going to have to file bankruptcy.
Yeah, that's
why you should always make sure that your family is set up for success. He didn't set her up for success. You never know. I mean, we could go out and get hit by a bus tomorrow. We want to make sure that we build our business, which is our most valuable asset, and set our family up for success.
So in your 6P methodology, and often what we talk about in this podcast is marketing, business development, tangible strategies that folks can use. What have you seen across the board for those companies who exit rich, or those individual entrepreneurs or exit rich in the B2B world, or maybe just in the business world in general? How are they deploying their marketing effectively nowadays? Or what are you seeing channels are using, strategies that, you've kind of picked up on that have seemed pretty repeatable across the board? Well,
one thing that I saw during this pandemic is that business owners, and I've written articles about this, business owners started going through their P&L, which you got to remember, a lot of business owners don't know their numbers. And they started going through their P&Ls and start cutting things and was to reduce costs because of this pandemic. And I would work with my clients who are like, oh, I'm cutting marketing. I'm like, no. You don't cut marketing. That's the one thing you cannot cut is marketing. Remember, lack of aim, always innovate, always market. And I'm like, look, we're going to go through your marketing. Let's look at all the channels. Let's look at what's working. Let's look at what's not working. Get rid of what's not working and double down on what is. Double down on what is. So if you're doing Facebook ads and that's not working for you for whatever reason, but let's say SEO or Google or pay-per-clicks, Google pay-per-clicks or LinkedIn or whatever is working for you, let's double down on that. Does that make sense? And get rid of what's not. So many business owners want to, tighten the purse strings when times are tough. And the first thing they want to cut is marketing. The last thing you ever cut is marketing.
Reinvest your marketing, maybe in a different way.
You can reinvest it in a different way, get rid of things that are not working and focus on the stuff that is working. I mean, I've had to do that in my own business or different marketing channels. And you're going to look at, okay, is it the marketing channel that's not working, or is it the actual person I hired to run this marketing channel not working? Which is it?
So in the B2B world, high dollar, long sales cycles, big technical sales, what are some of your favorite channels that you've seen over the years or, deploy into?
Well, I'm a big ticket item, right?
Yeah.
And I can have a very long sales cycle in a lot of cases. We do everything, I always tell my business owners, and I don't know what you say as a marketing expert, but I always say you can't have 1 or 2 or 3 marketing channels. You need to have between 5 to 10. Between 5 to 10, just like you should have multiple profit centers, you should have multiple marketing channels. So I've seen a lot of clients, including ourselves. I mean, we do SEO, we do Google, pay-per-clicks. Content, I think, is huge. You got to have lots and lots and lots of content, articles, blogs. I mean, why do you think I write books? That's a form of marketing.
Yeah.
But you got to have tons and tons and tons of content. We also do speaking engagements, that generates leads. Our books generates leads. We do a lot of different Zoom events. I've seen a lot of big ticket items really kind of follow, do social media, maybe do some pay-per-clicks. I've also seen them, have a really good funnel where they do webinars and all that stuff. So I think it just really depends upon the industry.
And webinars still crush it for some.
We use about 10 different channels we do.
Yeah. See, but where I think people get so hung up on that is then they try to spread themselves thin across too many different channels.
We're not doing the marketing. We have marketing experts to do the marketing for us because it's not our core competency. And that's what I'm going to tell everybody. And marketing is not your thing if you don't really know marketing, because marketing, I think there's an art to marketing, and I think it takes a special individual that's their core competency to actually do the marketing for you. We're not running our Facebook ads. We're not doing our Google pay-per-clicks.
Yeah.
We have resources for that. We have experts in their field for that.
Another guy I was talking to mentioned he didn't want to outsource because he eventually wanted to exit his company and wanted it to be more valuable because he built it in-house. Is that bullshit, or is there
I think that's so most companies outsource their marketing.
Right. So if you're tapped into the right vendor, does that create any value difference?
Well, if he has in-house marketing, what's unique about it? Because, again, when we evaluate businesses, we look at the proprietary assets. So what's unique about it? Does he have unique marketing software? Does he have something different that nobody else has? Does he have a good marketing team? I mean, we've sold lots of media companies. We've got digital marketing companies we're selling right now. What does he have unique to him in that company? Or his efforts spent more on doing the marketing versus really focusing on the core competencies of their business and focusing on their clients? And now they're too diverted. You know what I mean? We'd have to research that to see.
Where's the uniqueness, the IP, and the stuff you're actually selling, or is it? Yeah, I gotcha. Right. Yeah, that's interesting. People have these misconceptions on stuff like that.
A lot of companies are not doing their own marketing. Some are, but I would say the majority are not.
Right. So the GPS exit model, in the beginning stages with planning your exit strategy from like day one, we're building out another arm to our business under, a separate brand with separate IP and everything. Do you, if you're building your company that way, should you include your employee 1, employee 2, employee 3 on that premise that we're going to plan to exit this someday? And you may be a part of that, and there may be a benefit to that.
I think if you are going to do that, it's good to do it from the beginning. What you don't want to see, and what most owners are petrified of, is selling and then their employees finding out. Because if you've been in business for 15, 20 years, employees don't like change. They're fearful that the new owner is going to come in and terminate them or be difficult to work with. So, most owners don't tell their employees that they're selling. But if it's something you're doing from the beginning and the employees can be part of the process and actually get an upside from that, get compensated from the sale of the business, then I think it's a good idea.
I've noticed a lot of startups have been doing that recently. In the very beginning, all their first employees they bring in, hey, we're planning on
SaaS companies do that. E-commerce companies do that, not other companies. Most other companies don't do that, don't implement that strategy.
Yeah, got it.
That's typically SaaS and e-commerce. And I think it's a great strategy to implement, because if you're a serial entrepreneur and you're going to go out there and keep creating masterpieces, and but the big question is, do those employees stay on for the new owner, or are they following you to your next business? Because buyers want to buy a business with employees.
Yeah, infrastructure. I mean, if you're just a solo company, unless it's data. Have you seen that? Like you bring up the WhatsApp acquisition pretty often to Instagram. Was it Instagram?
No, WhatsApp.
Or Facebook.
No. Well, Facebook paid $19 billion for WhatsApp. And WhatsApp was hemorrhaging, but WhatsApp had 1 billion users. So there's different proprietary assets that can drive value and get you a lot of money for your company, even if you're not making any money.
Because a lot of entrepreneurs, especially my generation of millennials and Gen Zers, are creating these info product businesses or digital, courses or some sort of digital intellectual property business. How would you build that in the hopes of exiting? Is it more on the data in it? Because a lot of it's built around your personal brand, which is like, it's kind of a weird thing to think about exiting someday.
Well, and that's kind of, the catch-22. A lot of entrepreneurs get in trouble because they build a business out of their home and they have 0 employees. They might have some subcontractors, but they want to keep them for their next business. And they don't really have any infrastructure whatsoever. They have a product or they have an idea or they have, like you said, some data. And that's much harder to sell. It's not impossible. But we have to find the right buyer that wants to roll their products, roll their, concept, their IP up into their business. But a lot of buyers are looking for infrastructure.
Would it ever just be for the data, for customer data?
It could
hey, we
be
just want
for
to buy
data,
you because it's customer data.
But that's not very often. How many times have you heard somebody paying $19 billion for a software company?
Right.
Not very often.
That's why I'm kind of curious because.
So it can happen. I mean, anything can happen once or twice. It can definitely happen, but it's not the norm.
Yeah, gotcha.
It's not the norm.
Let's talk about, but briefly, I want people to go get the damn book because the book is incredible. But if you want to at a high level, because I know we didn't, and it's your key for podcasting, talk about the 6 Ps. And dial into what I also think is the most important P, which is profit. Talk about some of the profit mistakes that you see.
Yeah, we can dial into the 6 Ps, and people can still get the book because it's only 6 chapters.
Yeah.
And a 23 chapter book, and it's a 300-page book.
I went and got this bookmark just for your book. I hope your gold and silver.
Oh, I love that. I have my own bookmarks. I would have sent it to you if you bought it straight from me.
Oh, all right. Go yell at Sharon.
I'll send you a bookmark anyway. No worries.
Fair enough. Love it.
So the 6 Ps, it's really the infrastructure of the business. And, so many Gen Zs and millennials are starting businesses. And let me tell you something. It's one of the reasons why they're not going out of business is because they're solving problems, right? They're looking at the problem. They're solution focused, solution oriented. They're solving problems. They're staying in business because of that. Remember before 90% of businesses are going out of business because we don't need another coffee shop. We don't need another yogurt store. We don't need another brick and mortar. But millennials and Gen Zs are solving problems. And that's great. But if they want to sell their business, we're either going to have to roll it up with a big conglomerate like a Facebook, like a Google, like somebody like that, or you're going to have to build the infrastructure. And it's hard to know at what point do you do that. So just contact me and give me some information about your company and I'll tell you what to do. We also help people get ready to go on Shark Tank. That's another thing that we do. So the 6 Ps, number 1 is people. You're reading a book, right? People. You don't build a business, you build people and people build the business. One of the biggest reasons that businesses are not sellable is because business owners have created a glorified job. And they don't have any employees, like in the case of the lady whose husband dropped dead of a heart attack. You got to have people. You don't grow a business, you grow people. Now, the problem with a lot of business owners is they have the mindset that if they want it done right, they have to do it themselves. Well, that's not true. We got to focus on our strengths, hire our weaknesses, put the right people in the right seats. And I always call it the who question, who opens the door, who handles marketing, who handles banking, accounting, legal, etc.
Let me pause you really quick on that because the change in companies that are going out of business now versus in the past, I wonder if people aren't bringing on as much staff. They're using contractors more. They're using different infrastructure. So as cash flow ebbs and flows, they don't have the overhead. I know in our business, we have significant overhead with employees, staff, infrastructure, blah, blah, blah. And so when things are tough, like it's very, it could be like, hey, we could close doors tomorrow or we can keep growing. And so I wonder if there's a correlation there with companies not hiring people, but they're staying in business longer.
Maybe. I mean, Toys R Us had a lot of people, didn't they? And they went out of business. You're saying there's a correlation between businesses going out of business because they're not hiring people?
It just made me think of it when you're bringing up people. I wonder if more businesses now are using much more of the world of contractors, so they're not totally going out of business when their cash flow ebbs and flows, and they're not showing their businesses closing down. It was a random thought.
Obviously, when a business starts to deteriorate, then they cut overhead, and one of the biggest overhead is people. And they go to 1099ers and things like that. Or if you look at companies like McDonald's, they're transforming everything into computers. So they're starting to incorporate technology in which to decrease their overhead. I've got a company I'm selling right now between 60 to 70 million. They're spending about $10 million to try to, well, not try, because it will decrease the overhead by 70, 80%. And so a lot of business owners are looking for ways that they can decrease overhead, that they can, get rid of employees and really start incorporating technology. And they're doing that for a multitude of reasons. Number one is to be more efficient. Number two is to be more profitable and less headaches. Let's face it. A lot of times the more people you have, the more problems you have.
So I'm just wondering if there's a connection there, between that. We have way more options for staffing than ever used to from Fiverr.
Well, a lot of businesses are going out of business right now because people don't want to work.
Yeah.
So the pandemic, we're still in the pandemic, but restaurants are opening up. Lots of businesses are opening up, but they can't serve the public because people don't want to go back to work. So if that continues to happen, you're going to see more businesses shut down. Or they're going to go to more 1099s. But guess what? You can't have a bunch of 1099s and always remain legal. You got to check the boxes if you're going to employ 1099s over employees.
Right. Okay. So I didn't mean to totally deter from there, but just a thought exercise that totally kind of connected there for me. But bring on the other P's.
So the other one, well, you've read the book. What's the second one?
So the second P, we have profit. We have,
God, you got to do an order. You're naming the last one.
I can't do them out of order.
No,
okay, so product.
No, they're in order for a reason.
You can't put me on the spot like that. I don't recall in my brain like that.
Product. Your brain goes straight to
product
profits.
Is number one or number two?
Connor, your brain goes straight to profits. Product is number two.
So define product.
So product is your product, your service, your industry. Remember when I said 70% what's that?
Sorry, go ahead.
Remember when I said 70% of businesses are going out of business?
Yes.
And the number one reason is lack of innovation, lack of marketing. And they're not keeping up with the inventors that are starting new businesses and doing things online. Look at Toys R Us, look at Blockbuster. Product is your product, your service, your industry. You have to ask yourself, is it on the way up? Is it on the way out? Are you an Amazon and you're in your prime? And if so, that's when you sell. So many business owners are in their prime and they want to keep holding on, and their business deteriorates and they end up going out of business. So sell when you're in your prime, or do you have a Blockbuster and you're about to go out of business? So this is where you really should be innovating, and you should be asking yourself, what kind of business, what business are you in? If you recall correctly, well, I don't know if you know this, you're probably too young to know this, but back in the 90s, Amazon did this. They asked themselves, what business are we in? And they said, we're in a book fulfillment business. We fulfill book orders. Number two is, what's your core competency? What do you do better than everybody else? Did you ever watch the movie The Founder, based upon the McDonald's?
Yes, a number of years ago.
So Ray Kroc, who took over McDonald's, if you remember correctly, Ray Kroc was in the bank trying to borrow money because he was over leveraged. And he took out a loan on his home. And they said, no, we're not giving you any more money. He walks out of the bank. This gentleman overhears the conversation. He says, look, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to eavesdrop here. But he goes, I think I can help you. He goes, what business are you in? And Ray's like, I'm in a restaurant business. He goes, no, what business are you in? And Ray kept saying, I'm in the restaurant business. He said, no, you're in the real estate business. You need to buy the property, build the restaurant, lease it back to the franchisees.
Mm.
When they're not compliant, you void the contract and you lease it to someone else. He started corporate realty, McDonald's corporate realty. It gave him the leverage to be able to basically steal McDonald's away from the McDonald brothers. I think he paid them, what, $1 million each? And it's the reason that McDonald's is the largest real estate holding company in the world. Can you imagine?
Most people don't think of that or consider that.
Can you imagine what would have happened if that gentleman never followed him out of the bank and asked him, what business are you in? What business should you be in? We wouldn't have McDonald's. We'd probably all be healthier today, but we wouldn't have McDonald's, right? So same thing with Amazon. Amazon's like, what business are we in? We're in the book fulfillment business. And they're like, well, what do we do better than everybody else? We do fulfillment. What business should we be in? We should be fulfilling products for everybody all around the world, not just books.
But they started with one key competency that they got really, really great at and then scaled out to other areas.
Well, of
Do you
course.
think too many companies try to have too many different profit centers right in the very beginning and then they are over leveraged?
Well, you can't have so many profit centers, number one. Number two, they got to be congruent.
Yeah.
But you can't just have one profit center. That's what happened to restaurants. Pandemic hits, restaurants get paid how? Patrons go in and eat, or they take food to go. Do they have an e-commerce site? Are they selling sauces? Are they selling seasoning? Are they selling something that's unique to their restaurant? No, they get paid one way. You cannot have one profit center. Your business will die. You have to have multiple congruent revenue streams. But like you said, you got to scale. I mean, McDonald's, if they would have bought MGM and went into the movie business 20, 30 years ago, they probably wouldn't have been successful, right?
Movies and McDonald's, M&AMI.
Movies and McDonald's.
It might have worked out great.
Or they bought Whole Foods. So, you really need to innovate. You need to ask yourself what business you're in, what business should you be in. Yeah. I mean, that's a perfect example of Ray Kroc. If he wasn't asked that question, there would be no McDonald's today.
But so many entrepreneurs think of their business a little bit too one directional versus, hey, if we're going to have a brick and mortar, why don't we look at owning the real estate versus we go and lease a building? Why don't we build a proprietary machine that does XYZ? That could help to, add the value. If you're thinking about exiting from day one.
Well, owning the real estate doesn't necessarily add the value unless you're adding real estate where you can sublease other units out, and that gives you some residual income coming in. Just because you own the real estate in a business doesn't necessarily increase the value, because most buyers don't want the real estate. Private equity groups will not buy the real estate.
Got it. So mostly if you have other unit opportunities within the building where you're operating.
If the building can bring you additional income other than, just for your own business. Now, you can always lease it back. I mean, you can always do that. You want to make sure you have that building in a separate corporation too. Do
majority remote companies now seem to be more attractive to buyers versus brick and mortar?
Say that again?
Nowadays, do buyers seem to be more attracted to fully remote companies that you can operate and run fully remote versus brick and mortar?
It doesn't really matter. I mean, so many businesses are still brick and mortar. I mean, but we're talking, our sweet spot is businesses $10 million and up. And these businesses have infrastructures. These businesses have buildings and employees, et cetera. They are looking at, well, how flexible is it? Are people still working from home? Can that reduce costs? They are looking at that, but it really depends upon the infrastructure. If you're going in to buy a multi-million-dollar manufacturing company or packaging facility or something like that, you're not going to do that virtual.
Yeah, you can't. Absolutely. And that's what I'm wondering is remote businesses becoming much more attractive for buyers or more demanded by buyers?
Because again, there's 5 types of buyers, right? So it might become more attractive for first-time buyers, especially those that want to work from home. It's not going to be really that attractive to turnaround specialists. Maybe private equity groups, they're looking at infrastructure. They're looking at the infrastructure. They're looking at the 6 Ps. They're looking at what they can roll up.
Do you think entrepreneurs leaving, you see this big migration happening, especially from the pandemic, industry executives who are like, I'm not going to go do this corporate job anymore. I'm going to start my own business. Should they unless they're doing something really innovative or unique or proprietary, should they probably just look at buying an existing business in the very beginning?
I always say that entrepreneurs or people leaving corporate America are not necessarily an entrepreneur, right? So I always say these people should buy an existing business versus starting a business. Unless you have a really unique idea, it's really so unique.
Which everyone thinks their idea is the most unique. We're going to have t-shirts with turtles on them, and we'll call them turtle tees. And it's genius.
We're going to start this restaurant where they throw axes. That's unique. Everybody.
Why does everything have axes nowadays too? Is
my
other question.
But everybody thinks their idea is unique. And the thing about it, they just don't do enough due diligence. There's so many businesses on the market. And there's good businesses on the market, especially if you're working with a firm like mine. We have good businesses. We make sure the cash flow is there. We make sure the financials are clean. We make sure they're operating on all 6 Ps. There's so many good businesses to buy that would probably cost you less money in the long run than starting a business from scratch. Because
100%.
Startups, I read something one time that said, or saw something on TV that said startups are going out of business because they don't have a good business plan. That's BS. Startups don't go out of business because they don't have a good business plan. They go out of business because they run out of money. Because they don't have enough working capital. So it's so much better to buy an existing business that has the employees in place, that has the infrastructure, that has the processes, and you go in and scale that business and make it your own.
Yeah. Well, you find with the popularity of Shark Tank, a lot of people are jumping in and saying, I got to raise money for my business versus like, I got to actually go sell shit to, raise money for my business. Maybe it's a little bit of both, but I agree. I think most people don't think about going through Michelle and considering buying a business with, processes and products and everything in place.
A lot of buyers do. That's why we have thousands upon thousands upon thousands of buyers that we work with and are in our database. So a lot of buyers do think about buying an existing business. What you see on Shark Tank
or maybe first-time entrepreneurs is more what I'm thinking about. Because it may not be first-time entrepreneurs for the most part, right?
You mean that are buying businesses?
Yeah.
No, there's a lot of first-time entrepreneurs buying businesses because they're not really an entrepreneur. They're leaving corporate America. They don't have an idea. They don't have an invention. They don't have something that's really unique to them. What you see on Shark Tank a lot of times, I know because we're helping clients to go on Shark Tank, is you'll see some serial entrepreneurs have created 3 or 4 or 5 inventions, and now they're on number 6.
Yeah.
And you know what? Shark Tank is great because, like I told my clients before, I said, don't go there to get a deal. Go there to get the publicity.
The exposure, 100%.
The exposure. Go there for the exposure.
Well, people running that in their ads, even though they didn't get a deal through Shark Tank, they're like as seen as on Shark Tank. So anyways, there is so much here. You are an absolute wealth of information, and I really, really enjoy our conversation. And everyone needs to go check out the book. I'll put the ticker up here, exitrichbook.com. And before we do wrap up, is there anything else actionable, tangible, strategy-wise that you want to share before we wrap it up here?
Yep. And then I want to tell everyone, go get the book at exitrichbook.com. I'll tell you all the value you're going to get because they're still giving away the bonuses. So before I do that, though, last thoughts. I always say so many people go into entrepreneurship and they really don't necessarily. It's not what you know that gets you in trouble. It's what you don't know, right? And I've had a lot of entrepreneurs tell me, well, Michelle, it's so lonely. Entrepreneurship is so lonely. I'm like, no, it's not. You just got to get in the right masterminds. You got to get in the right groups. Your network equals your net worth, which is what we talked about earlier. And you got to align yourself with the right mentor. Find a mentor that's been down the path you want to travel. Not just any mentor, because there's a lot of them out there that are not really successful. So make sure you find a great, successful mentor that's been down the path that you want to travel, because they'll shorten your learning curve dramatically and shorten your path dramatically. I always say, my quote is, it's hard to read the label from the inside of the bottle. You need an outsider's perspective to read the warning signs that keep you out of danger. So, and successful entrepreneurs want to help other entrepreneurs become really highly successful. So, Exit Rich. You can go to exitrichbook.com for anybody that lives inside the United States. Outside the United States, go to Amazon. And for $24.79, we'll email you the digital download. We'll ship the hardcover to your doorstep. We'll give you a lifetime membership into the Exit Rich Book Club. And there we have video content, me doing deep dives in these different strategies and techniques I've been teaching for the last 20 years, plus documents. We have documents to operate your business, documents to sell your business. So sample employee handbooks, org charts, policy and procedure manuals, letter of intent, purchase agreements, due diligence checklists, closing documents. Everything you need to operate and sell your business are there for your review and download. And I can promise you, Connor, these documents will cost you about $50,000 if you want to recreate.
Yeah, there's a lot. Like you find a lot of books, maybe they have a little resource section at the end. Almost every single chapter has downloads for documents, templates you can fill out. It's incredible how you put that together. And then I might have missed this. Did you mention your entrepreneur community?
Yes, I was about to. So you also get a 30-day free membership into Club CEOs, which is an entrepreneurship mastermind, where we really help business owners pivot and build that sustainable, scalable, sellable business. All at exitrichbook.com. And my main website is seilertucker.com.
Cool. And make sure you buy
podcast, Exit Rich.
And your own podcast. How long have you been doing your podcast for now?
I started a little over a year ago, but then I got so busy participating in everybody else's podcast for the launch. Also, you know, Exit Rich is a Wall Street Journal bestseller, USA Today bestseller, and endorsed by Steve Forbes.
So the podcast is still going, or that's on a
hiatus? No, it's still going. Yeah,
it is. And you're enjoying doing that?
It was on hiatus while we were doing the launch.
Yeah.
Now the launch is over, thank goodness. And talk about pivot. You know, Exit Rich was supposed to come out April 2020.
Oh, seriously?
And we had to pivot. We had to keep moving the launch date back because there were no stages. There were, you know, everything that Sharon Lecter and I planned in which to sell Exit Rich just was gone during this pandemic.
So go check out the Exit Rich podcast. I'm sure you're having a fun time doing that. Being on the other side of the microphone or getting to experience both sides is always an interesting dynamic. Definitely get the book from Michelle, not from Sharon, because they're clearly in competition and Michelle's going to give you a hard time. So make sure you go visit. Everybody listening, Michelle, super grateful for your time. Thank you so much. Hang out for one quick second while we wrap up here. Everybody, lots to unpack there. You know, I'm definitely going to go back and listen to this episode again. Make sure you go check out the book. I'm telling you, no matter what your business is, there is something of value in here for you. So go check that out. Make sure you go subscribe, go to iTunes. Please leave a 5-star review so that others can find the show too. And if you're struggling to maintain your blogs, newsletters, social media content, visit our partners at activeblogs.com, activeblogs.com. With that, my friends, much love to you. I'll see you on the other side.
Yeah.